Coming up on Global Business, clean push. Chinese President Xi Jinping stresses on high-quality development of new energy for a cleaner world and highlights China's efforts to build the world's largest clean power supply system. Payment support. China is taking a series of measures to optimize payment services that will make it easier for foreigners visiting China to pay for goods and services. And mixed bag. Eurozone manufacturing activity continued to contract last month, but optimism is rising about the year ahead, while inflation dips less than expected as core prices remain high. From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is Global Business. I'm Zhu Jufeng. Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the Communist Party of China Central Committee, is urging the high-quality development of new energy in China for a cleaner world. Leading a CPC Central Committee Politburo Group study session, Xi Jinping said China has built the world's largest supply system of clean electricity. China has become an important force in the global efforts of energy transition and tackling climate change. Xi Jinping stressed efforts to coordinate the development of new energy and national security of energy and tackle key technologies. He hopes to build a stronger new energy infrastructure network, deepen global cooperation, and achieve self-reliance in technology development. This is just in. China has approved an action plan aimed at expediting the replacement of large-scale equipment, particularly in the manufacturing sector. This initiative is part of a broader strategy to stimulate investment and encourage consumption upgrading. As part of the plan, China authorities are encouraging consumers to trade in their existing vehicles and household appliances for new ones. The roadmap for this action plan was discussed during the State Council executive meeting chaired by Premier Li Qiang on Friday. Now, China's top political advisory body will begin its annual session next week, and its standing committee met in Beijing on Friday to prepare for the session. CPPCC Standing Committee Chairman Wang Huning attended the meeting. The committee approved the decision to start the annual session of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference on Monday. The session reviewed the drafting of the Standing Committee's work reports and a report on how the last year's proposals have been handled. China is taking a series of measures to optimize payment services that will make it easier for foreigners visiting China to pay for goods and services. The efforts are to reduce barriers in multiple consumption and investment scenarios, both online and offline. Biran has more.
A guiding document on further optimizing payment services and improving convenience of payment was reviewed and approved by the Chinese State Council. It urged comprehensive and coordinated action to make payments easier for foreigners and senior citizens.
We will continuously insist on the usage of cash and optimize currency exchange and cash services. Further, mobile payment services will be enhanced to connect international cards, payment tools, and e-wallets. There must be support for a diverse array of payment methods.
As China's visa-free policy continues to expand, the number of foreign visitors to the country has been increasing. According to research, over 30% of foreigners use cash as a principal payment method in Shanghai, especially when making large payments. So Chinese banks are taking measures to expand the acceptance of overseas bank cards and facilitate the use of cash in the country.
We will strengthen the currency exchange services in airports, ports, and hotels to ensure international visitors get to exchange currency upon arrivals if needed. We'll encourage business owners to accept international bank cards in e-commerce consumption scenarios.
China has a developed system of mobile payments, while many other countries and regions still use credit cards and cash. It's noted that efforts to popularize mobile payments in China will be advanced in parallel along with a bunch of other payment methods. In the future, the upgraded payment services will be provided in cities around China, especially in hotels, small businesses, and tourist attractions. To make it easier for the overseas tourists to use payment apps, the government agencies need major payment providers such as Alipay and WeChat to upgrade their registering process while ensuring the account privacy protection. Biran, CGTN, Beijing.
It's been 3 years since the implementation of China-EU agreement on geographical indications, marking China's first comprehensive high-level agreement on GIs. Geographical indications are crucial intellectual property rights that signify geographical origin of a product. According to an official from China's National Intellectual Property Administration, during the past 3 years, there's been an increase in the number of Chinese products labeled with GIs in Europe. Similarly, there's been a rise in the imports of superior quality European products, including liquor and farm produce, to meet the growing demand of Chinese consumers. British companies are expanding their investments in China. Century-old department store Harrods has joined hands with renowned Michelin-starred chef Gordon Ramsay to open a new private members club, placing bets on China's high-end market. Cheng Tong takes a closer look in Shanghai.
We met Gordon Ramsay in Shanghai.
Thank you so much for taking the interview.
With numerous restaurants across the globe under his belt, this multi-Michelin-starred chef finally opened his high-end eatery in China's financial hub.
Shanghai is desperate for luxury. It oozes great sophistication, and competition is healthy. To be part of that now, and to be part of that renaissance, I'm very happy.
But do you think compared with consumers in London or in Europe, consumers in Shanghai, in China, they are willing to spend a lot of money while eating out?
Yes, they are. You look at the quality of whiskies on the shelf, the wine list, and again, that need for perfection. Shanghai now can rub shoulders with Paris, Milan, New York, London, Barcelona, Rome, and so Shanghai has all the ingredients to be as good as Paris, as good as New York, and as good as London.
Ramsay's restaurant is located on the second floor of a private members club that the British department store Harrods set up in Shanghai. The club is the only one of its kind that Harrods has in the world. Harrods aims to attract 250 members with an annual membership fee starts from 150,000 yuan, or over $20,000. Members can enjoy various services including luxury purchases, tourism, and even property purchases.
Remember, what we're doing is targeting the ultra-high net worth individual. And that ultra-high net worth individual does well during recessions, it does well during COVID. So that customer is still there. The difference is they're looking for things that are special. They're looking for exclusive product that nobody else can have.
According to China's Ministry of Commerce, British investments in China jumped 81% in 2023. Ramsay and Harrods have arrived in Shanghai in the new year, eyeing the country's high net worth consumers. A report by CITIC Prudential Life Insurance shows the number of Chinese families owning net assets of over 10 million yuan, or some $1.4 million reached over 2 million in 2023. Among cities, the number of such families in Shanghai recorded an expansion of 3.4% over last year, the fastest.
Retail giants are showing their confidence in the China market, and their confidence is not without reason. LVMH says its number of Chinese consumers in 2023 doubled the figure in 2019. So clearly, the strong purchasing power of Chinese consumers is pushing retail giants to place their bets on the domestic market. Chen Tong, CGTN, Shanghai.
The Guangdong-Macau In-Depth Cooperation Zone in China's Hengqin has taken an important step Friday to drive greater levels of cooperation and integration with Macau. New policies include tax exemptions on a wider range of products and other steps to streamline the flow of people, goods and capital. Cao Chufeng has more.
At the stroke of 12 o'clock midnight on Friday, the Guangdong-Macau In-Depth Cooperation Zone in Hengqin, adjacent to Macau, officially became a closed customs control area. 10 hours later, the initial batch of goods eligible for tax rebate under the new policies entered Hengqin from other parts of the Chinese mainland.
The value of our goods this time is $3,600, and we got a tax rebate of around $400.
The area between Hengqin and Macau is now designated as first-tier zone, and the area between Hengqin and other parts of the Chinese mainland is designated as second-tier zone. Previously, only a limited range of goods entering from the second tier to Hengqin qualified for tax rebates, but now the policy is much more inclusive.
New policies have expanded the scope of goods under the second-tier equivalent of the export tax rebate policy. Compared to the previous policy, it is no longer limited to goods related to production, and the list of non-refundable goods has also been reduced.
A wider variety of goods entering from Macau to Hengqin through the first-tier zone also now benefit from duty-free or bound policies. They only incur taxes when they leave for other parts of the Chinese mainland, and imported components may be exempt from tax when the value added is large enough after being processed within Hengqin.
Goods produced by enterprises within the cooperation zone containing imported components and with value-added processing exceeding or equal to a 30% increase of the components are exempt from import duties when entering the mainland through the second-tier channel.
Introducing closed customs system in Hengqin is a big move for greater level of integration between Hengqin and Macau, but it's just one step, and more are expected to further promote coordinated cooperation and development between these two areas. 曹志峰、CGTN 之线，恒清、珠海。
A new visa exemption travel deal between China and Thailand has come into effect, resulting in a significant increase in the number of Chinese visitors to Thailand. In just a single day, there has been a 30% year-on-year surge in Chinese tourists visiting Thailand. The mutual visa exemption agreement signed in late January has made Chinese visitors the largest source of visitors for Thailand since the beginning of this year. The Ministry of Tourism and Sports in Thailand predicts that approximately 8 million Chinese tourists will visit the country this year, generating around $9 billion in revenue. Our reporter Chawarat Yongjiranam in Bangkok has more.
With the waiver of visa for Chinese tourists to Thailand, things are looking up. Already, the first 2 months of this year saw a total of 6 million visitors coming to the country. Out of that, the majority were from China, and this was a 48% increase year on year. The reasons are there's more confidence in the security here in Thailand. Also, there are more flights, especially in Chiang Mai, one of the hot cities to go to. And we also have this visa waiver that we have now started today. The Prime Minister of Thailand, Srettha Thavisin, has already inspected international airports here in Thailand, saying that he wants to quicken the pace of the process for immigration so that it's easier. We do have long queues right now, and right now we do see there are popular searches already on both sides for people going to China and people coming from China. Cities that are interesting here in Thailand, according to Trip.com, have been Bangkok, Phuket, Chiang Mai, Koh Samui, and Pattaya. And Thais looking to China might be looking to cities such as Shanghai, Chengdu, Harbin, and Beijing. The private sector is very happy. There is hope that there's going to be more activity in the areas such as the real estate sector. The condominium sector has seen a lot of actions coming from foreign purchases, particularly from the Chinese visitors. Education is very much one of the things that we're looking at, as Chinese language is one of the biggest topics amongst Thai students. Around 850,000 people are studying Chinese right now because they want to be able to use it in their careers and also within the tourism sector. And lastly, the agricultural sector is going to be increasing their exports to China, hopefully in the areas of durian, mangosteens, and other fruits that are of interest to the Chinese consumer. All in all, this year we hope that the numbers of visitors from China could reach to around 8 million tourists, and this hopefully will, kind of restart the engine here in Thailand in terms of revigorating the tourism industry and also the Thai economy.
Tourist destinations around the world are keen to see the return of Chinese tourists after the pandemic. New visa-free policies are helping Singapore attract a flood of travelers from China, as Zhang Shixuan reports.
Featuring all Singapore-style street scenes, An outdoor pop-up space is now open in Shanghai's downtown Huangpu district, run by the Singapore Tourism Board. It's not just showcasing the country's skyline with well-known scenic spots such as Gardens by the Bay, but also some of the hidden destinations. It's all to lure more Chinese travelers to Singapore.
My company will conduct a trip to Singapore. It's convenient after the visa-free policy. I can now visit Singapore whenever I want, during weekends or short vacations. During this spring festival, some of my relatives went to Singapore. They said there were many visitors.
I will travel to Singapore in March for the first time. I'm planning for a 4 to 5 day trip to visit some classic scenic spots and also have a city walk in between niche streets.
Last December, China and Singapore announced a 30-day mutual visa exemption agreement. Data from Trip.com shows 10 minutes after the announcement, the number of Singapore-related searches increased by more than 30% from the previous year. Orders made by Chinese visitors to Singapore surged more than 14 times year-on-year for this Spring Festival.
China is an important visitor source market for Singapore. China has quickly re-established itself, its pre-COVID status as a top tourism receipts contributing market in the first 9 months of 2023. We expect this will pick up in terms of the travel demand with visa-free travel. The increase in inquiries have also been reflected by our travel trade based on anecdotal comments. Some of them are experiencing a 30% to a 50% increase in inquiries since the visa-free announcement was made.
Last November, the Singapore Tourism Board started its first tourism campaign since the pandemic targeting Chinese visitors. And now, with the new visa-free policy, it's rerunning the campaign in China and working with companies serving the tourism industry to make it all more convenient for Chinese travelers.
One example is our collaboration with Singapore Airlines, Scoot Airlines, and many other airlines we work with to promote and motivate Chinese travelers to rediscover Singapore with the visa-free travel now. The other way is to make our travel to Singapore seamless, and we work very closely and collaborated with payment gateways and banks. Examples would be WeChat Pay, UnionPay International, as well as Alipay, to encourage spending, one-for-one deals, and more enticing F&B offerings, as well as retail offerings to Chinese stakeholders, Chinese consumers.
Data from the Immigration Inspection Station shows, in the first 3 days since the visa-free announcement, there were more than 10,000 people from 2 countries arriving or departing through the Shanghai Pudong International Airport. That accounted for 90% of the total number of travelers between the 2 countries. Zhao Shixuan, ICS for CGTN Shanghai.
You're watching Global Business. Still to come. Mixed bag. Eurozone manufacturing activity continued to contract last month, but optimism is rising about the year ahead, while inflation dips less than expected as core prices remain high.
Here on Biz Talk, we connect the dots, shedding light on the real stories behind the economic landscape. To better understand China's dynamism and the economies and rhythms of business, propelling new drivers of growth.
China.
Chinese market. China. Biz Talk, your window into China and the global economy. Only on Biz Talk.
Negotiations at the World Trade Organization's biannual conference have reached a stalemate with no breakthrough in sight. The conference aimed to revise the global common commerce rules on various topics, including curbing fishing subsidies and extending a memorandum on digital trade tariffs. However, no new deals have been agreed upon, and even the formal acceptance of completed negotiations on improving investment has been blocked. The World Trade Organization operates on a consensus basis, requiring all 164 members to agree. Despite the lack of progress, there's hope that a breakthrough on one issue could lead to the resolution of other deals, as seen in the Geneva conference in 2022. G20 finance ministers and central bank governors have wrapped up 2 days of talks in Brazil. They failed to agree on a joint communique. The sticking point was not related to the core themes of their meeting, like taxation and fighting inequality, but rather to disagreements on global security, particularly the conflict in Ukraine and Gaza. Paulo Cabral reports from São Paulo.
Tax the rich. That's the key message from Brazil's Minister of Finance, Fernando Haddad, in his opening statement on the second and final day of the meeting of G20 finance ministers and central bank governors in São Paulo.
Despite recent advancements, it is undeniable fact that the world's billionaires continue to evade our tax systems through a series of strategies. The latest report from the EU Tax Observatory on tax evasion demonstrated that billionaires pay an effective tax rate equivalent to between 0 and 0.5% of their wealth.
Haddad says the plan is to introduce a draft proposal for a global taxation on the super rich at the next meeting of the G20 financial leaders in late July in Rio de Janeiro. Fighting poverty and social inequality is at the heart of Brazil's proposals for the G20 this year, as the country holds the rotating presidency of the group. And so far, strategies on taxation have been receiving a lot of attention from Brazilian officials as a key means to achieving their goals. But despite efforts to keep the meeting on track discussing finance, it was impossible to keep the geopolitical tensions out of the mix, as suggested in the words of the German Minister of Finance, Christian Lindner.
There is no business as usual at the G20 because there is a war going on against Ukraine, there is the terror by Hamas, and there is the humanitarian situation in Gaza. All this can't leave us unaffected, and all this needs to be addressed here. We were against leaving these issues off the agenda.
The conflicts prevented the group from reaching a full consensus that would allow for a joint communiqué, even if Brazil's finance minister said in a closing news conference that on specific financial issues, the countries did reach common ground.
We almost reached a wording even on the topics of global security, despite the difficulties of the meeting of foreign ministers last week. We still made efforts to arrive, even if it was just a brief note on the topic, so that we could release the statement. And it came to a point where the impasse was so small that it related to a single word. But indeed, it came to a point where the meeting ended.
The minister, however, did not specify which was the contentious word. Fighting poverty and social inequality are huge tasks that Brazil is proposing to the G20, but the global security concerns seem to not only make it harder to solve these problems, but even to discuss them as well. Paulo Cabral, CGTN, São Paulo.
To Europe now, the manufacturing sector in the 20-nation Eurozone remained in contraction for the 20th consecutive month in February, according to the latest Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, survey conducted by Hamburg Commercial Bank and S&P Global. The PMI dipped to 46.5 in February due to weak demand, remaining below the 50 mark that signifies growth in activity. Analysts anticipate the survey have expressed their belief that the industrial recession in the Eurozone is not expected to end soon. Meanwhile, official data indicates a continued easing of annual inflation. However, the decrease was less significant than anticipated, with core inflation, which excludes volatile food and fuel prices, remaining above 3%. The European Central Bank has suggested that prices could bounce back as a result of fast wage hikes resulting from worker strikes. According to a recent poll that surveyed 1,600 entrepreneurs, there's been a notable decline in confidence regarding the business environment in the Netherlands. Alarmingly, almost half of the participants expressed the belief that the country is not an ideal place for conducting business. Judith Chapman has more.
1,600 entrepreneurs were surveyed in the annual poll of business sentiment. The results found a significant drop in confidence in the Netherlands as a business destination. 44% of those who took part said it's not an attractive place to do business, a rise of 16% from the year before. Some 20% said they were considering leaving the country. Among the major concerns cited in the VNO-NCW poll was political stability, as coalition talks aimed at forming the next government have stalled. 82% of bosses said they were dissatisfied about the current political situation. They also cited regulations, personnel shortages, and taxes as factors weighing on them. The labour market in the Netherlands is extremely tight. The latest figures this month show there are 114 job vacancies for every 100 people out of work. But an overhaul of the tax system last year increased taxes on banks and for share buybacks. Far-right politician Geert Wilders, who won the country's general election in November, has promised to reduce taxes and stop migration altogether. He's also threatened cuts to the country's generous startup subsidies, which entrepreneurs warn could hurt the Netherlands' standing on green innovation.
They want to lower the retirement age, so you have to get money from somewhere else, and those subsidies can be a possible solution for that. I think that can be very scary, because then you stop innovation, and in the short term this is a good thing because people will get earlier retirement, but in the long run it will stagnate our growth and stagnate our position as being a leader in the forefront of the sustainability movement. So I really hope that the potential current government, because it's not yet set, has a vision for the long term.
All of those potential changes depend on the outcome of coalition talks. Wilders has struggled to form a government since his PVV party won the highest number of seats at the general election. The outcome will have a big impact on how businesses in the Netherlands are feeling. Julia Chapman, CGTN, Amsterdam.
With that report from Amsterdam, we'll wrap up this edition of Global Business. I'm Jin Beijing. Thanks for watching. CityTN continues with more news and views. Stay with us.